Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I am a very simple person. Not in the sense that I'm simple-minded, but in the sense that I don't need much to be happy. You don't need a huge house or a new car every 2 years. I just need a place that I can call home, good food, a little alcohol from time to time, and from time to time a woman to be with. Preferably, a woman with whom I can share my life. Again, I just want to be comfortable and at peace with my soulmate. My ideal day is a few hours of fishing, working on an old sports car or pickup truck, an evening barbecue with 1 or 2 beers, a good dinner, and then a quiet evening with a glass of bourbon in my arms with my wife and a good book. Simply, very simple. I must admit right away that I am not a movie star, an athlete, or a model. I'm actually quite of average build. I'm 1 meter 78, brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm in pretty decent shape. I'm 51 years old now. I'm not too rich. My current girlfriend doesn't seem to mind. Isabella is 45 years old, but she is still quite attractive. Her long, luxurious, shiny black hair hangs down to the middle of her back. Yes, she is a Latin American. Quite a common occurrence for a native of Costa Rica. Her height is 6'3" meters. She has beautiful breasts of the third size, a narrow waist, and wide hips. We've been together for a little over 5 years now. I met her about a year after I moved here, and we've been together ever since. A typical day for me starts at 5 in the morning. I get up, take a shower, get dressed, drink coffee, have breakfast, and go to the yacht. Before leaving, I always, without fail, kiss Isabella. Most of the time. I spend most of the morning fishing, then come back and sell most of the catch to local shops from the pier. Sometimes, to supplement my income, I take a charter for tourists. Although I don't need it, I have enough money to live practically for the rest of my life. As I said above, I don't need a lot of money to live well, especially here. After selling everything I caught, I return to the house where Isabella is cooking dinner. After lunch, I clean the fish I brought home and go to the garage to tinker with my latest toy. Now it's a 1967 GMC pickup that I'm building. In a couple of hours, I'll have a glass of bourbon or a bottle of beer and relax on the porch. Later, I'll light a barbecue and cook steaks, fish, or chicken, which we'll have for dinner. Usually Isabella joins me with a glass of wine, and we discuss our days while I cook on the grill. After dinner, we both clean up and settle down on the couch, reading books and talking about all sorts of topics. In bed, we usually, though not always, make love before falling asleep in each other's arms. Even on those nights when we don't make love, we still hug in our sleep. We are both very happy and satisfied. It's actually an idyllic life. Sometimes we visit a local bar to have dinner, drink, and dance a little. Sometimes we invite friends to the evening, so we are not hermits. The town on the coast is quite small, and I am well known and loved. I could have imagined living here for the rest of my life until I saw her at the bar that night. Isabella and I were having a pleasant evening at a local bar with a couple of friends when she came in with a group of 5 people. They were divided equally into boys and girls, college age. They probably came home from school for spring break. There was no way I could miss it. He is 6'6", with long wavy red hair, emerald green eyes, a sporty figure with a beautiful size 4 chest, and an angelic face. She was an exact replica of my wife at her age, and had clearly grown since I last saw her 6 years ago. Perhaps this has just answered your question about why Isabella and I never got married, even though we have been together for 5 years. The reason is that I am already married. Yes, Isabella knows about it and has accepted it. No, my wife has no idea about Isabella. Moreover, she has no idea where the hell I am, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure she never finds out about it. If she had found me, I would have had serious problems. We need to get out of here and fast. I whispered to Bella. Why? What happened? What is it? She asked. Do you see that beautiful redhead that just came in? She nodded. Now you know exactly what my wife looked like when she was about 20. Damn, she replied. Fortunately, we were sitting not far from the door. When I saw the group moving towards the bar, Bella and I quietly made our way to the door. We came up with some kind of nonsense excuse for our friends to leave, but they also knew that it was nonsense, and they understood that later I would have to tell them about what happened. I saw the bartender pointing to the table we had just vacated when the door was closing behind us. So you're probably wondering what the hell is going on. In fact, you've probably already figured out the general idea, but now you need to fill in all the details. The fact is, I'm hiding from my unfaithful psychopathic wife. She cheated on me and then planned to rape me in the divorce unless I just walked out of it naked. I decided I wasn't going to let that happen. I used to be known as Damon Lewis. That was my name when I was born. It's still my legal name, but I don't use it anymore for obvious reasons. I grew up in a small town in California. He was the middle child, having an older brother and a younger sister. Of all of us, I was the only one who went to college. My parents died in a car accident when I was a junior in college, and my brother died in a construction accident about a year after that. My sister and I never got along. So after the death of our parents and brother, we just drifted apart. We don't even exchange birthday or Christmas greetings anymore. I graduated from university with a degree in civil engineering and moved across the country in search of work. I had been working for a large engineering firm for several years when I met Patricia. Pat was a friend of a friend when we met at a party on Saturday afternoon. She graduated from college with a degree in history. She currently works as a barista at a local coffee shop. After a half-hour conversation with her, it became obvious to me that she went to college for two reasons. Firstly, it was a way to keep from growing up for a few more years, and secondly, she was really going to get a Mrs. degree. For those who are not familiar with this terminology, a Mrs. degree is when a girl goes to college for one of the easy majors in order to find a husband who will take care of her. Yes, I know. Red flags should have appeared. Unfortunately for me, she was incredibly beautiful, charming, witty, and seemed pretty smart. We seemed to get along well, and I asked her out. She agreed. I took her to a nice restaurant, then to a show. We had a good time and I asked her out again. She agreed. After a few more dates, we decided to become exclusive. After the fifth date, she spent the night with me. Naked. She was as gorgeous as I imagined. We are well settled in our married life. She quit her job to become a full-time mom when she found out she was pregnant 6 months after the wedding. James Damon Lewis was born, who was the light of our lives. Less than 2 years later, Michael John Lewis was born. 2 years later, Sherry Patricia Lewis appeared in our lives. All three were beautiful, healthy children. It didn't take long for Sherry to completely trick me. She became a daddy's daughter. We decided that 3 was enough, and after Patricia, we tied up the pipes. Life was wonderful. Patricia stayed at home and raised the children, and I worked to provide for the family. I received a good income, so the children and my wife did not need anything. At the age of 30, I was promoted to senior engineer. A year later, we bought a house in the suburbs. Both drove good cars, and I had a 1972 GTO in my garage. Patricia and I still found time for each other. They had a date night every month when they hired a babysitter to go to dinner and a show or some other event. We still had a full-fledged love life, as it seemed to me. Of course, over time, it became a little impoverished, but we both worked hard on it to fix the situation. We always made love at least 3 nights a week, and also I was at home every night. I wasn't one of those guys who travels for work. When the children grew up, Patricia began to participate in extracurricular activities for children. She became a soccer mom, an American soccer mom, and of course a dance mom. I've never seen the slightest hint from her that she's unhappy. I attended every show, game, and event I could. I don't think I've missed more than 5% of children's activities. April 7th. A few months before that, I turned 45 years old. The children were at school and it was lunchtime. I just came out of a construction site I visited not far from home and decided to stop there for lunch. I was following another car down my street about half a block in front of me when I saw it turn into my driveway. As I got closer, I saw a man get out of the car. I couldn't believe it. Danny Johnson was my best friend. He knew I wasn't home, so what was he doing here? Something was wrong. I decided to just drive past and park a little further down the street. I drove to a place where I was far away, but I could still see my front door. I watched the son of a bitch walk up to the door, take out the key, and go inside. What the fuck is this? I called the office and said I was stuck with the project and would be back late. After getting out of the car, I returned to the house and walked around the backyard. I knew that there was a small gap in the bottom of the blinds to our bedroom, and the blinds on the patio door are usually left open. Creeping along the back of the yard, I was able to hide behind bushes so I could see through the French doors. My wife was standing there in a very short robe and passionately kissing my former best friend. Yes, I already took out my mobile phone and filmed it. As they moved towards the hallway, I also moved over to look through the bedroom window. I filmed everything on my phone. I left shortly after that. I just couldn't look at it anymore. Back at the office, I was in a daze when I really didn't know that she would cheat on me. I needed more information. After a couple of hours, my engineering brain turned on. I have a problem. Engineers solve problems. That's what we do. I can sort this out. I just need a little more time. So I called Patricia and said I'd be home a couple of hours later. This was not unusual for me. Although it didn't happen often, there were times when I needed to stay late. So she had no reason to be suspicious. I went online and found what I needed. Several small Wi-Fi security cameras. These little bastards don't come cheap, but I handle the finances, so she'll never see the bill until it's too late. I sent them to my office. He couldn't risk her seeing them when they were brought home. Then I got into our finances and started making some moves with our savings and retirement accounts. These were small things. The rest can wait. The last thing I did was start studying divorce laws. It wasn't very pretty, so I needed to investigate further. Now about the most difficult part. For the next week or so, I needed to act as naturally as possible. I couldn't let her guess that I knew about her affairs. Somehow I managed to get out of it. I said I thought I might have caught a cold, which seems to be going everywhere. I'm not sick enough to stay at home, but close contact is best avoided. There was no love that night, and we slept on opposite sides of the bed. A couple of days later, on Friday, I received the cameras and software. I packed them in my briefcase before heading home. I still had a cold, but it was getting better. It's better to keep your distance. The next morning, Patricia went shopping. I took this opportunity to hide a couple of cameras in the bedroom. I also managed to hide a couple more in the living room and kitchen while the kids were out. I hid the recording device in the attic. Patricia had never gone up there, so it was safe there. I must admit that we had love that night. She is still a very beautiful woman, and love has always been very good. On Sunday, I went for a walk with the children, just doing my father's business. For dinner, I cooked steaks at the barbecue, watched a movie, and went to bed. I had a blockage at work on Monday. I was constantly thinking about what I would see on the cameras later. I couldn't concentrate on my work. The day ended, and I finally went home. Patricia noticed something was wrong, but I said that I had a personnel issue at work that I was solving. I made myself a bourbon on the rocks and went upstairs to take a shower and change my clothes. Patricia was busy in the kitchen, so I was able to sneak upstairs and download the video to a USB stick. After dinner, I told Patricia that I needed to go to my home office to check on our finances and investments. After closing the door and turning on the laptop, I inserted the USB stick and started watching the video. It didn't take long to fast forward to the moment Danny walked in. He uses it on the bed. Missionary, cowboy, doggy style in her ass, and several other poses. They went to the bathroom together, and an hour later came out freshly washed. Then we got dressed. One more passionate kiss at the door, and he left. I'll need to look at this in more detail at work tomorrow. When we went to bed, Patricia noticed that I was still sullen. I explained again that this is a personnel issue at work and I can't discuss it, but I'll probably end up having to fire someone I like. She understood, and she knew how much I hated firing anyone. The next morning, I was even more shocked. At that time, I was listening to the audio part of the recording. "So when are you going to dump Damon's pathetic ass and run off with me?" Danny asked. "I can't do it yet," she replied. "I want to wait until the children graduate from school. Before that, he would distract them too much. Besides, he earns very good money, and I want to accumulate a good amount of capital before giving it to the cleaners." "You hate him so much." "No, I like him, and he provides for me well, but I've never really loved him. I've always seen in him only a good meal ticket. The fact is that when I divorce him, I will need as much of his property as I can get to live the way I want. It's not that I really want to cheat him. I just want to be sure that I will live comfortably for the rest of my life without needing a job. Why not just find another husband with whom you are more compatible?" He asked. "What? How are you? Are you going to divorce your little wife? Besides, she would have exposed you, too." and you don't earn enough to support me the way I want. I'd still have to find some pathetic job to make ends meet, like Donna is doing now. Suppose he finds out about us? He'll probably throw you out on the street. He can try, but then I'll just tell him the facts. If he does that, I will rape him in the divorce. I've never worked since about 6 months of our marriage. This means that I will receive alimony in the amount of several $1,000s a month, plus all child support, plus their education and medical care, plus as much of our savings and pensions as I can get, and I will get a house and full custody of the children. After hearing all this, he will have no choice but to sit back and accept it. Okay, I've heard enough. It's time to cast the bait. I spent the rest of the day studying the divorce laws in this state. It was pretty grim. I went into our law office and discussed this with one of my friends, who is a lawyer. We talked for about an hour. Although this is not his specialty, it was clear enough that I would have to at least pay alimony, give her the house, half of my savings, half of my pension, and pay quite a lot of monthly alimony to support her, since she never had a paid job during our marriage. No, the state doesn't care that she's a cheater. Besides, if she had a real shark lawyer, things could have been much worse. There was only one thing I could do, and it would hurt like hell. It took another 2 months to get everything ready. It was expensive, but much cheaper than the alternative. I managed to get fake documents that were professionally done through old school friends who went the other way. I quit my job and cashed out my pension. I also refinanced the house for the entire estimated amount and put this money into one of the offshore accounts. Yes, it was supposed to ruin my credit history for the next 7 years, but to hell with it. After going online, I created several offshore bank accounts in different names in Belize and the Cayman Islands. I gradually transferred money from our investments and savings to my offshore accounts, making sure that these were random amounts and much lower than the reporting level. There were only a couple of things left to do. During those 2 months, I started going to ATMs every couple of days and withdrawing a couple $100s in cash. Then I went to another bank and deposited this money into another account, issued only in my name, and then electronically transferred it to one of my offshore accounts. Thus, all our accounts were successfully emptied to a couple $1,000s. As a result, I sold my GTO for $20,000, and the money immediately went to offshore accounts. Patricia went to the gym early in the morning for a workout. She did this about 3 times a week. I said I was taking the day off to make up for the extra time I spent working. I was just going to sit and relax, because it's pretty stressful at work. As soon as she left, I went to the office and sat down at my laptop. All the videos and other information that I have collected have already been placed on 4 flash drives and then connected to the cloud. I have already set up a mass email newsletter with a link and access information. Before sending the letter, I completed the final transfer of funds from all our checking, savings, and investment accounts to the new offshore accounts I created. Then he closed all accounts and changed the mailing address to a mailbox, which asked a friend to check and destroy all mail for the next 2 months. I left the current account address the same. She knew about it, and a request to the bank would probably give her a new address, and I couldn't let her sit and watch what was happening. In addition, the account statement will only show the last transfer to a fictitious account in the amount of less than $1,000. In the worst case, it will be petty theft. As soon as this was done, I sent an email to all our friends and her family. Then I reformatted the computer and inserted another flash drive with a very unpleasant virus that completely destroyed it. All the statements and papers on all our accounts were taken out to be burned in the grill, leaving no paper trail to find the bills. It's hard to find an account that you don't even know about and where it might be. By the time someone could figure out what happened, I had already transferred the money several more times and erased all traces. The last thing I did was get in the car with a briefcase and 1 suitcase and left for the airport. I made 3 stops along the way, one at each of my children's schools, where I brought a flash drive to the office to be given to my children, and another stop was at the goat's house, where I gave the last flash drive to his very confused, soon-to-be, ex to my wife. I parked the car, left the keys in it, and went to the terminal. 6 different flights, 3 rented cars, trips to other airports, to 4 countries, more than a week of time, and I landed in Costa Rica to start a new life with a new identity. Oh, and before you think that I'm a complete idiot, I should mention that I have created a trust fund for my children that will pay for all their education, as well as ensure that each of them receives enough money to take care of what they need. A friend of mine from work has agreed to be a trustee of this fund. He had to make sure they got everything they needed, but not a single penny could be used by my wife. Meals and rent were included for the children, so she would have decent accommodation and food, but no frills. Of course, the bank would foreclose on the house, so she would have to look for a place to rent. Thanks to everything I did and the investments I made, in 6 years I had over $5 million in banks and securities. Sherry. Spring break in junior college. I studied engineering, just like my dad. I haven't seen him since he left home 6 years ago. Oh my God. The mess he left behind was terrible. I understand why he did that. He left a flash drive for all three of us, which showed what Mom was doing. I couldn't believe it when I heard her telling her lover what she was going to do to Dad. I have to admit that it was hard for a while. Mom lost the house, and we had to find a much smaller house that we could rent. Mom even had to look for a job. God, she hated that. At least Dad left us a trust to take care of us. We never lacked for food or anything else that we needed. But we needed to be accountable for everything. It was very specific, nothing for Mom. If she needed clothes, she had to find money somewhere. She always had enough food, and she lived with us in a rented apartment, so she had shelter, but otherwise everything was pretty gloomy. Fortunately, I was there only until graduation. Mom and Danny often quarreled. Oh, yes, Danny's wife practically raped him during the divorce. Mom and Danny moved into a small studio apartment after I left for college, and the trust stopped paying for the house we lived in. After that, they couldn't afford the rent. Anyway, a couple of my friends got a very good offer for a small resort in Costa Rica for spring break. It was a small resort located a little away from the main spring break destinations, so since we weren't in the mood for the heavy parties we've been throwing for the last couple of years, we decided to go there. There were 2 rooms, the boys in one and the girls in the other. Yes, there were 3 couples, but I didn't have a serious relationship with the guy I was with at the time. We had fun, but I think we both knew that we had no future with each other. We stayed there for 2 days when the guys decided they wanted to try deep-sea fishing. We girls just wanted to get some sun on the boat. After being pointed out to a local bar, where there were several boat owners who sometimes took charters, we went over and went inside. We had just gone to the bar to ask who we could talk to about the boat charter, and were already ordering drinks when I noticed an elderly couple slip out the door. I only glanced at the guy's face, but something about him seemed strange to me. I couldn't tell what it was, but there was something about that face. Anyway, the bartender pointed to the table and started pouring us drinks. With drinks in hand, we went over to talk to 2 couples sitting at the indicated table. Josh, one of the guys in our group, asked about the boat charter for tomorrow, pointing out that the bartender had pointed them out as people who might be able to help us. Oh, he was probably talking about David, but you just missed him. He and Isabella just came out, one of the men said. Damn, Josh replied. Is there any way we can get in touch with him? We really want to sail somewhere tomorrow. Well, the old man began. Probably the best thing is to be at his boat before 6 tomorrow morning. He usually takes her fishing around this time. Just go down to the docks and look for Sherry Patricia. What did you say? I shouted. I said to look for a boat called the Sherry Patricia. It's David's boat, he replied, looking confused. Wow, I began excited. Señorita, are you all right? One of the women asked. What did you say his name was? I asked, completely ignoring the question. His name is David. David Knight, was the reply. Oh my God, this can't be happening, I whispered to myself. What's wrong, Sherry? Nick, my boyfriend, asked. I saw both couples' eyebrows rise when he called me by name. The name of the boat. Do you know my middle name? Patricia. I'm Sherry Patricia. Patricia is my mom's name. There is a tradition in my family that the eldest son bears his father's name as a middle name. My parents expanded this tradition so that their daughter's middle name would be her mother's first name. I suddenly realized what it was for the flicker of the side of the face. Thank God. Let's go. We need to go right now. I told my friends. Looking at the 2 couples, I asked, where is his berth? I need to get there before he leaves. As I said, he usually doesn't leave until 6. No, he's going to leave. He saw me and will run away again. I need to catch Dad before he dumps me again. The silence in the bar was deafening. The expression of complete shock of the two couples and all my friends would have been comical if I hadn't been on the verge of a nervous breakdown at that moment. "Are you sure?" the elderly gentleman asked. After my nod, he got up and started moving towards the door. "Come on, I'll show you." The city wasn't very big, so we got there in just a few minutes. When I saw his boat, I ran down the dock and jumped on it. He wasn't there. I turned to my friends. "Go back to the resort. I'll see you there in the morning," I said. "Are you sure? We have to stay to make sure you're okay. He might hurt you or something. After all, it might not even be him." "No, I'm sure. I need to do it alone anyway. This is a personal matter. Besides, if I'm wrong, he won't come here until morning, and you guys will still be here early in the morning when he comes. If I'm right, he'll come here soon to hide, and the presence of all of us here will only scare him away. Now go away. I don't want him to see you." After a few more reassurances, they left, but I knew they wouldn't get far before they hid and watched. Of course, just 10 minutes later, headlights approached the dock. I hid in the cabin when two figures got out of the car and carried their belongings to the boat. I sent James and Mike a message to sit down with me on a conference call, and it's urgent. As soon as they were in touch, I told them to keep quiet and that I was putting them on speakerphone. Whatever they heard, they had to keep quiet until I told them otherwise. After receiving their assurances, I put the phone on the table next to me. "David, what the hell is she doing here? Did they somehow manage to track me down? Does she know that I'm here? Or is this one of those random coincidences that karma throws up to ruin everything? At least I saw her before she noticed me, and I don't think she saw me at all when we left the bar. However, I couldn't take that risk. If they were looking for me, I still have a good chance of escaping. Assuming that they are not sure that I am here, then I have changed so much that any old photo would not help anyone to recognize me. Besides, I've completely changed my identity, so no one here knows anything about Damon Lewis." While we were carrying food and luggage to the boat, I looked at the name. Heck, and why did I just name my boat after her? Another reason to get out of here before she sees it. Heck, how long has she been here at all? It doesn't look like she just arrived. "Come on, Bella. We need to move. I think it will take at least a week, maybe 2, and we will be able to return," I told her, putting the refrigerator on deck. "I'm sorry. Are you David Knight? My friends and I would like to discuss the possibility of chartering your yacht for tomorrow." I heard a melodious voice from inside the darkened cabin. "No, no, 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 no. Let it not be her. I'm sorry, but she's unavailable. There is another job for my boat that will take the next 2 weeks, and I need to move to make it on time. I can't help you, and I really need you to leave my boat right now. I'm in a hurry." "Really, Daddy? Are you going to run away from your daughter again?" she said. I tried. I really tried. I used all my willpower to tell her that I didn't know what she was talking about. It didn't help. I just couldn't say a word. She turned on the light, and I turned to face my beautiful baby. One look at her and I fell to my knees, sobbing. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I just couldn't think of anything else. The hardest thing in the world was for me to leave you and your brothers. You were my whole world, but I just couldn't stay." I burst into tears. "Dad, you left us without a word. I didn't even say goodbye. Not a word. Nothing. For 6 years, we didn't even know if you were alive." She was swearing. "I know, baby, and I'm really, really sorry, but I just couldn't risk her finding me. I couldn't say goodbye to you because she might find out what I was doing. Believe me, baby, I've hated this every day for the last 6 years. And yet, you were just about to run away from me again. Yes, I didn't think you saw me. I didn't know if you were looking for me here, or if it was just a coincidence. If it's just a coincidence, then I thought it would be less painful for you if you never found out that I'm here. If you were looking for me, I couldn't risk you telling your mother or the authorities where I was." Well, the second part makes sense. After all, you're probably facing jail time if they can get you extradited back to the States. Of course, that's unless your wife finds a way to get here and kill you first. She had a truly evil smile. "I'm sorry I put you through this, baby. I wouldn't want to, but I just couldn't go through with what she had planned. I would have been gutted by her, or she would have spoiled me and never let me see you again while I was paying her to be a slut. No matter what I did, if I stayed, I would have lost all of you. I've decided that since I'm going to lose you and your brothers anyway, at least this way I can provide you with everything you need and keep some of my dignity. I'm very sorry about what happened. I really wish there was another way. So I guess as soon as I get off this boat, you're going to get out of here? I had a little laugh about it. No, I believe it will take your mother at least 3 days to get here. And it takes even more time to attract the authorities. I'll stay here for a couple more days. In addition, I have information about a small group that may be interested in chartering my boat for tomorrow. She smiled. Only if I get a family discount. Now, won't you introduce me to your friend? After the introduction took place, Sherry asked, "Why haven't you got married yet? Because it looks like you're both in love." Actually, there are two reasons. First and foremost, as far as I know, I'm still married to your mother. Secondly, I'm only getting married under my real name. If I use it, I can be tracked down, and that can cause a lot of problems. She smiled wryly, and then said something that made my chin drop to the floor. "Hey, Mike, you're the lawyer here. What do you think about what he just said?" I almost fainted when I heard his voice. My gaze suddenly stopped on her mobile phone, which was lying next to her. "Well, Dad, since Mom managed to divorce you last year because you left her, you are free and clean in this matter. Secondly, although it is technically true that you can be found by your real name, this will require either a lot of money for the investigation or someone's tip to direct them in the right direction. But even in this case, it will take money to check it out and then do something about it. If we talk about me, then after studying all the information that you left me, I absolutely do not intend to tell my mother anything that she could use to find you. Besides, she and Danny Boy are barely making ends meet right now, so I really doubt she'll even have the means to try to find you. This is just my personal opinion. I can't speak for Sherry or James. I agree with Mike too, Dad. I'm going to tell my mom that I talked to you on the phone, but I have no idea where you were when you called. I heard James's voice on the phone. Of course, it was hard for us for a while, but I blame my mother for being in this position. I was mad at you for a while, but then I realized the position she put you in. Do you see, Dad? You don't have to worry about us. But there's a catch. You have to invite all three of us to the wedding. And I'm also planning to come here for the summer holidays. So you better ensure that you have a place for me for a couple of months, Sherry added. Isabella and I talked a little more with Sherry and the boys before they needed to hang up. Then Sherry went on deck and called her friends to come on board. She laughed when they asked how she knew they were still there. The next day, everyone had a great time by the ocean. I gave them a family discount for free. Sherry spent some more time with me until the end of the week before she had to go back to college. True to her word, she spent 2 months with us in the summer. I had some additions for next summer, when the boys were supposed to come too. Isabella and I got married that summer while all 3 of my children were there. 5 years later. Ready, princess? I asked. More than ready, Daddy, Sherry replied. I almost fell to the floor laughing, looking at the faces of Patricia and Danny as I walked the baby down the aisle. Danny was outraged when Sherry walked around him and asked James to walk her down the aisle at the wedding. They didn't know it was a setup. I was the one who was actually going to marry her off. Yes, James was fully aware. They did it to hide the fact that I would be there. Isabella later told me that there were a lot of questioning looks at her when Mark escorted her to the front bench. It wasn't until I finished my role and sat down next to her that people started to understand what was going on. Who is marrying this woman? The preacher asked. Her father does it, I said. I felt Patricia's eyes on my back. Oh, she knew the kids were talking to me. I just didn't know how tight it was. She also didn't know where I was. When I forbade her to give Sherry, I thought she would explode. It was only later that she finally understood how Sherry and Noah could afford such a beautiful wedding and reception. The ceremony was beautiful, and Noah is actually a wonderful guy. I saw it in their eyes when she took him out to meet me. Their love was real and will last a long time. We need to talk, Patricia hissed at me as we walked into the reception hall. I actually don't think that's necessary. I already know that I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not interested in whatever you come up with to justify your betrayal, I replied. You stole all my money, you bastard. Well, I just thought it was payment for what you took from me and gave to someone else. Did you really think that I would accept that you were cheating on me and even pay you for it? With that, I turned my back on her and left. The reception was a great success. I paid for the whole bar. When the DJ announced the father-daughter dance, Danny got up and moved to the dance floor. Sherry just brushed past him as if he wasn't there and took my hand to ask me to dance. Of course, Isabella and I danced a lot that night too. My sons also danced with her several times. James' wife and Mark's fiancé invited me to dance with them a couple of times. How could I refuse? Both flatly refused Danny when he asked them to dance. I think that's what finally threw him off balance. As I said, it was an open bar. Danny obviously took full advantage of this. He was humiliated all day, starting from the moment when I walked my daughter down the aisle instead of him, and ending with the fact that he was not mentioned when marrying her. He was ignored during the father and daughter dance, and he was categorically refused when he invited my son's wife and fiancé to dance. He felt his liquid courage when he finally decided to try to put me in my place. He had the courage to ask Isabella to dance. She didn't even say a word. She just stared at him for a minute, as if she were examining a bug that had just landed next to her, then turned around and continued talking to the couple next to her, as if he wasn't there. I saw his face turn white and then red with rage. Several other people also stopped their conversations and watched what was happening. I was moving right behind him when he stepped back to swing at my wife. Catching his swing in mid-flight, I turned him around and informed him that he had exhausted his technique here. I noticed that several phones were filming what was happening. I kept calm and told him to go home and sleep it off, and if he tries to hit my wife again, I'll send him to the hospital for a week. Danny has become soft and slow over the years. On the other hand, I was thin and strong, having worked on a boat and cars for years. I lived a simple life, ate healthy food, and kept fit. Besides, I was practically sober, and he was close to getting drunk. I let him take the first 3 swings and was able to block them easily. After the first 2 misses, I warned him, 3 strikes and you're out. The wall held him while I struck. His legs finally gave out completely and he fell to the floor, but only after I managed to land a few good knee strikes in his crotch. When we took him outside, away from the cameras, I gave him 3 more good kicks. It will be a long time, if at all, before it starts to rise again. You probably want to know if I was arrested for what I did. Oh, she did a good job. If she had her way, I would have spent several years in prison for what I did. Unfortunately, for little things got in her way. First of all, she didn't have any documents about what I had done. She couldn't prove that I really took the money because I destroyed all the statements, and she never asked how much money we had and where it was. As far as we can tell from the available records, we barely made ends meet and lived from paycheck to paycheck. She didn't even know where to start looking for our investment accounts. My pension went straight to one of my offshore accounts. By the way, when she finally gave up and filed for divorce because she was abandoned, she went for it quickly and easily. Just a direct division of assets at that point. Of course, by that time there were no assets. Thirdly, all 3 children agreed to testify that I lived in a dilapidated house with no means of livelihood other than selling fish at the local market every day. Finally, all she could prove was petty theft in the amount of less than $500. The statute of limitations on this case has long expired. I agreed to give her a check for 60% of what was in the checking account on the day I left, just to show that I was a good guy. It turned out to be $576.93. Of course, all the videos showed that Danny attacked my wife first, and then me, and I gave him enough opportunities to leave. It was decided that it was self-defense, and he was hospitalized for 2 weeks. As a result, he lost the bad job he had. The epilogue. Patricia eventually divorced Danny. The damage was too great, and he would never be able to repair the relationship. Without love, they had nothing to hold them together. Isabella and I stayed in Costa Rica. Although we could return to the States, we both like a quiet lifestyle and low cost of living. We returned to the States several times a year to see our children and grandchildren. They also come to visit us regularly. We ended up buying a bigger house to accommodate them. By this time, my anger at Patricia had subsided. Although I no longer love her and do not want her to become my wife, I decided that she was punished enough. She eventually moved to Costa Rica and rented my old house from me. I helped her get a job as a waitress at a local bar. The money is not very big, but at least she can have a roof over her head and food in her stomach. Isabella and I visit this bar more often now than before. She keeps remembering what she's lost every time she sees us together, serving us drinks. No, we're not worried about her spitting in our drinks or in our food. I made it clear to her that if that happened, she would be homeless and unemployed on the streets of a third world country. And she will also lose touch with all her children and grandchildren. She does her best to make sure we are well taken care of. I have to go. Isabella just came out of the backyard with steaks and sea bass for me to put on the grill. The kids and their families are coming soon, so I need to make dinner in time. While I was putting the meat on the grill, Isabella returned to the house to check on the cleaner we hired to prepare the house for the arrival of the children. I smiled when I heard her talking to the cleaner. "Come on, Patricia. Hurry up, the guests are coming soon. We're not paying you to sit on your ass and twiddle your fingers." Good. So maybe I still have a little bit of resentment left.